What's up and welcome to the animated series where we showcase the dopest talent and untold stories behind the animation industry. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Alyssa Rosa. And today, I am so lucky to be here with writer on Annie, Emmy, and Kids Screen nominated series, as well as executive producer, my friend, my boss, Shakira Pressley. Welcome. Hello. You're here every day, but thank you for coming specifically to sit with me and talk with me.
It's contractually obligated.
We've been friends for a couple years now. Mm-hmm. And we grew up in the same area.
In Jersey.
Yes. So you moved around a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
About 45 times or more.
Yeah.
Did it ever ignite anything in you to for storytelling specifically?
I got to meet a bunch of different people. I got to meet a lot of different characters, I would say. And I wouldn't have expected this personality or this specific tick or flaw that you have or this thing that I like about you. So I think getting to meet a bunch of different people and getting to go to all these different places, I think kind of helped me develop all these different characters and world building within my own stories.
Mm-hmm. How did that impact you when it came to school?
It was very tricky to maintain friends, so I got very awkward and very shy, and then I also stopped trying and was I'm just gonna insert myself into more of my imaginary worlds and storytelling. I dropped out of high school and got my GED 10th grade year. I was very ready to leave high school, and so I was I'm gonna just get my GED. I'm going to save my own money. I'm going to get a job.
I feel like a lot of the times we're told, obviously, by, society that we have to graduate high school and then you go off to college and then you should work in the field, maybe get your master's. You definitely took a very non-traditional route. So I want to know if your mom was supportive of that, but also your thoughts on taking a non-traditional route versus a very traditional one outside of finances.
When I found out being a writer was a thing, that people did, I very much thought, oh, this is for privileged people. You have to have money to be a starving artist. You have to have parents supporting you. So I just started looking for alternate methods of how am I going to do this for myself? Mm-hmm. And I would watch other black people in the media, in media in general, being oh yeah, I never thought I'd be here, and yada yada. They just pour their hearts out about how hard it was for them, and I was okay, so there is a way. I just have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Eventually, it was a situation where I was all right, well, there's foundations and there's internships. So then I was okay, maybe an apprenticeship program or something like that. I wrote and I tried to get on the Nick writing program 5 times.
5?
So I was okay, I'm just not talented enough. I'll just stop. It just so coincidentally happened that my brother had moved out here. He was hey, I just got a new job out here. You can come sleep on my couch if you want to give it a try. And I was okay, yeah, I'm going to give it a try. I want to not live on our mom's couch for the rest of my life. So I came out around 2018. My brother had a comic that was coming out, and he was hey, I'm going to Emerald City Comic Con. Do you want to come and support me? And I'm going to be running this booth. And I was yeah, I'll help you out. And then if you need to go and take breaks, or if you want to look at the artist alley, I'll sit and watch the booth for you for a little while. Mm-hmm. While I was helping him, I was all right, I'm going to go look around. I'm going to check out stuff, see what's here. And I ended up talking to this dude who he was really cool. I was oh man, I love all the Cartoon Network stuff that you're drawing. I'm such a big fan. I grew up on Cartoon Network. It's one of the things that made me want to become a writer. And he's oh, so you're a writer? And I was well, not yet, but when I get the chance to, I'm going to hopefully become a writer. I just moved to LA not too long ago, and now I'm really looking for my first writing job. And he was I'm a producer, so when you get back to LA, here's my card, hit me up when you get back to LA. And I went back to my brother's booth, and I was oh, could you take this card? I got some people's cards and just put it in my bag. And then he recognized the name, and he's wait, I think I know this name. It just so happened to be one of the creators of Ben 10.
Wow.
And so I was oh dude, this is so exciting. This is gonna be my first chance. So we went to lunch with him, and then after we had lunch with him, he's yeah, send me your best script. From the moment we had lunch, I went home and I instantly started writing a script. So I sent it to him, and he was yeah, cool, this is great, it's funny, cool. So you're gonna come in, here's the location, come in, and you're going to freelance on an episode. And I was oh, thank God. And I was just cool, yeah, that's totally awesome, thanks so much. And then I was just oh.
Sweet victory.
My first episode of something, and then, yeah.
Did you feel in that moment like, I'm gonna be successful from here on out? There's no way that I'm gonna go back to what I was just experiencing before.
No, because it was just freelance.
Right.
And I knew that. And also, like, after that, I didn't get another writing job for like a year.
Oh,
so
geez.
because no one wants to take a chance on you. You're like, oh, you did one freelance episode of this show. And like people in the industry get excited where you're just like, oh, I worked on this. And you're like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
What? Oh, I wanted to draw on that, or I wanted to write on that. But people outside the industry, it does nothing for them.
Yeah.
If they're not an animation fan. So it was like, okay, well, I don't have a job for another year. I was still working at Warner Brothers Studio Tour, and I actually got fired. A friend at Skechers got me a job at a law firm, and it was ended up being the same law firm that's like a floor below the no longer Cartoon Network building.
Yeah.
There was like the big black building.
Yes.
And the law firm was on the 7th floor, and Cartoon Network was on almost every other floor.
Yeah.
So I would run into people from like Craig of the Creek and Ben 10 and Clarence that I knew, Infinity Train. They'd be like, oh, Kira, hey, what's
So
up?
cool. Yeah.
And I ended up going to a lot of the black and animated mixer things that would happen. It was just like, if you're black, you can come and you don't have to be in the field professionally. And then I was like, oh, thank God. So I ended up meeting like Jeff Trammell, who I found out like that 5th year that I applied for the Nickelodeon writing program. Jeff actually is the one who got in, and I was like,
Oh, wow.
I feel better about it now. Like I feel fine about that. I like Jeff. I ended up becoming friends with Jeff and becoming closer with Naja. My brother ended up working on Craig of the Creek, and then eventually I was like, okay, well, I'm still just gonna keep making pitches with my friend because I don't know how I'm gonna get hired any other way.
Right.
And eventually it came down to Craig of the Creek needed another writer. Like, they had like freelancers that they liked to rotate at the time, and they were like, hey, we're looking for some new freelance writers to write on some new episodes. Jeff and both Naja were like, oh, I have a friend, and they suggested me to the creators of Craig of the Creek.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, yeah, sure, give us her samples. And I was like, oh, God. So I went home, I punched up all my scripts. I was at the law firm, like, looking, like, hoping no one was looking at my cubicle and, like, typing. I had a Steven Universe spec script that I had submitted for the Nick writing program.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple of originals, and I submitted them, and they surprisingly got me the job.
Yes.
So I started my double date episode, like where you run from one date to the other, going from the law firm and then being like, oh my God, my stomach after lunch. And then I would like run upstairs to the Craig floor and be like, hey guys, I'm here for the writing room. And then like I would write on Craig of the Creek for like a couple of hours and then be like, okay guys, we're done here, we're wrapped, okay? And then just like run back downstairs. I did that for a couple of months. And then eventually Craig was like, hey man, we are losing a PA. Do you want to come be our PA? And then you can write in the room at the same time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, except I was so busy as a PA, I couldn't, I ended up not having enough time to always be in the room with them. And then it felt like I was like, man, am I gonna get stuck as a PA? Especially when they started bringing in new freelancers because I wasn't available anymore, and I was like panicking, and I was like, I don't know. And then I started like doubting myself.
Yeah.
And then eventually the doubt built so much that I was like, I have to do something about this because otherwise I feel like I'm gonna be stuck in this position forever, and I'm never gonna get to write another episode again. And like out of that fear, I was still on the side pitching projects. I went around to like different friends and I was like, hey, you pitched to this executive at this studio, right? Like, can you give me their information? And was just like, okay, here, I got 3 pitches. I got scripts for each pitches. They're all different, like tonally, genre-wise. I can show how diverse I am.
Yeah.
I pitched my 3 projects to the executives and they were like, just freelance? You've never been staffed? You're a no-name. Cool, got it. And they kind of were like, get out of here, kid. It was a good idea because I wasn't ready to run a show.
Yeah.
I was really mostly trying to show them that I could write well and that they should trust me to either like help develop stuff, hire me for rooms. But at least I know these executives now, so if I ever need them in the future, if they need me, they know me now. I have like they have like a face to the name. An executive, shout out to Jane Lee at Netflix, reached out to me and was like, hey, I really liked your pitches. We're not gonna buy any of them, but I see that you're talented and you're like a really big gamer. You're like a super nerd. I think I actually have a perfect show for you. One of your projects was kind of similar to this other project. So while we can't buy it, would you be interested in freelance writing on it? And I was like, yeah, sure, dude, let's go. And they showed me like all the episodes that they had done and like all this like really cool content. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. I can't wait to freelance on it. And they're like, no, this is a staff job. Did they tell you it was a freelance position? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, are you not available? And I was like, oh no, I'm available. I'm free right now. Ended up being for Battle Kitty, and I was like pumped. And I was like, man, the story editor on here is super cool. David Tennant and Matt Lazell, who's been a guest on the show that I have interviewed here.
So I feel like listening to your story, there's a lot of moments where it seems like you have imposter syndrome. I know, like, personally, just because we're friends, that as a kid, you used to compare yourself a lot to your older brother.
Yes.
Because you used to want to draw. When you reflect on those moments, do they have an impact on you now?
Not so much anymore. I think when I wanted to draw more, it was an invisible rivalry created by ego.
Oh.
And I feel like as I get older, I've learned to release ego a little bit from art and being creative. One, I don't also draw anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I just look at my art now and I'm just like, ooh, boy, that's ugly. But it's also like, now I understand it's just like lack of practicing it. As an adult, I can see even with our writing now of like, oh yeah, like, it's good because I like it. It doesn't have to do anything with like how other people are perceiving it, and that's like a part of it is like, if someone doesn't like my writing, then I don't take it as like an ego blow of like, oh God, look, it means something about, it's just like, oh, it might not be your cup of tea. There's some people that might enjoy it, but at the end of the day, I'm making it for myself now.
Right.
Me wanting to be a showrunner, having my ego run everything is not healthy. Right. Because even if I'm getting notes back from an executive, how am I going to work with them to solve the problems and get the show made? Or if people on my crew come to me and they're like, hey, we have a problem with this, or like, hey, can we change this? I have to be able to work with them, and I have to be able to look at like even other writers in the writing room with me and be like, oh, okay, these are why I trust you. This is a collaborative process.
So we talked about your journey. Well, you're a leader in so many different ways. I mean, even on this show, you're a leader. How do you feel stepping into that role? I know for you personally, you want to have your own show someday, and you want to be a showrunner, you want to be a director, I'm sure. I know you probably feel ready for that transition, but what would it really mean, not only to you as Kira the adult, but little Kira?
It's always so tricky because it's like, I've been feeling like even more and more over the last few years, like, oh, I'm ready for this, I can do this, I'm confident. I always feel like I have my story down pat, I know my characters, I know my world. I have been in enough rooms and developed enough projects now, not even just my own, but developed for studios, and seen like what works, what doesn't work. Yeah, I feel like I'm ready now. Because I feel like there's a lot of things that haven't been touched in animation.
Agreed.
And it drives me insane. I remember pitching and someone being like, oh, we already have a black sci-fi show, we can't make yours too. Or, oh, these characters can't be biracial because kids aren't going to understand mixed people. And, ooh, I like this, but can it be in the suburbs and not in an urban city? I can't think of too many animated, especially series, that takes place outside of the suburbs or like this like very, like usually port cities that are like really small, cozy places. I know production-wise it's probably a lot more difficult, but things like Hey Arnold felt like the area I grew up in when I was a kid.
Yes.
So characters who are in more urban environments, more actually melting pot feeling environments, is what I want to see more, like actual diversity. Like I think about Jersey and like, and like parts of New York where I'm like, yeah, in North Jersey, like I was surrounded by so many groups of people with different cultures, different ethnicities, like different personalities. Yeah. There are a lot of people who are not people of color making shows what people of color leads, which means that there are less and less of us being able to be given the shot to make those projects where we're behind the screen. Yeah. And not saying that there's anything wrong with those projects, but it just, when there's only one of us allowed to exist and the people making them are all white people, it just lessens our chances of ever being able to get those opportunities.
Right.
But there's a lot of stuff that I would love to put out into the world because there's still, I don't think I can name a character in animation that I still feel like represents me. And they're like, well, we gave you all these nerdy black boys, and like, oh yeah, there's a few nerdy black girls now, and it's like, yeah, are they scientists? Because they all have to be scientists now.
In order to be nerdy, and that's
yeah,
not
and
the
I'm like,
case.
no, I just want to like kick back, play some video games, like
Right.
I have an encyclopedia of like movie knowledge,
Right.
like, and if I don't feel like I can relate to any of them, there's so many other kids out there who feel like, oh, I can't relate either. And then also just like harsh situations. Like I would love to show animated characters who have different economic backgrounds.
Yeah.
Because I've not really seen, except for like when they're like an orphan, like Meet the Robinsons or something.
Or
like,
Hey Arnold, like you said.
yeah,
where
Hey
it's like-
Arnold, which is like, how old is Hey Arnold now?
Yeah.
And like, I can't name a character right now that comes from like a super poor situation.
Oh, yeah, neither can I.
And I don't want it to be like, oh, that's the jumping point for this movie or TV show, is that they're poor. I just
Yeah.
want that to be like a part of their lives, and it's like, you go back to that character's home, are those German roaches? Like, what are those? I don't like that. There's just not a lot of like real life situations that you're allowed to put in kids content, but not even just kids content, animation in general.
Yeah.
Because we're not allowed to do a widespread of things, you're typically grouped into doing mostly kids stuff, and it has to be comedy, which
Yeah.
means that kids who are experiencing a lot of hardship growing up no longer have shows like Hey Arnold that I grew up on, like you grew up on, where it's just like, oh wow, I relate to this because this feels like I've been seen.
Yeah.
And like those are the things that you remember. Like you're just like, that moment made me feel a certain way, and it doesn't always have to be pure comedy, and it doesn't always have to be for kids.
Yeah.
Or it could be for everyone,
It can be.
which would be great.
As you get older, it's not that you don't want the lightheartedness of like the Rugrats, for example.
Yeah.
But even within the Rugrats, there was a deep, dark story there. You know,
I mean,
especially
you
with
watch the
Chucky and his
Rugrats
dad.
movie,
Yes.
and you're
Both of
just
them.
like, yep. When Tommy was like, you know what, I'm leaving you to get murdered by the monkeys. They can have you. I'm done.
Yeah.
And he just like leaves him alone in the woods. You're
That
like,
was just-
oh my god. And
Yeah.
then like Chucky not having his mom, like you feel it. And I don't know. As a showrunner, those are the stories that I want to tell.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that in the future I get to actually tell those types of stories.
So you're a lover not only of animation, but live action as well. If you could, what would be your dream project to make?
I want more mature content in animation.
Yes.
So what I would like to do and what I would like to see is a big like John Wick, Lian the Professional style action flick that's
Yes.
just full out brawls, cool action sequences,
Yes.
really good emotional like through line. I just want more action projects that can allow people to really utilize the animation and it not just have to be like a really goofy sequence with action in it. It's like, no, I want like a full out old boy style brawl with a character that you're really rooting for to get whatever goal that they want. And I think like there's so many fun things and ways that you could choreograph those fights using animation that kind of can up the visuals more than a live action.
But thank you. I'm excited for people to hear your story because I feel like I said, it's such a unique one, and a lot of people who probably are in your situation can, if they have the ability to watch this and look at this, can be like, I can do this too someday, which is very important.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Do you want to play a game? You go.
Yeah, okay.
So now we're gonna play Animationary. Kira and I will pick a name out of this hat. You'll go first, I'll go second, then you'll go
Okay.
third. And Kira's basically going to draw the character. I have to guess it. You go first.
Doop. Okay. You know, like you remember like parts of a character?
Yes, all the time.
Because I don't remember what this character looked like anymore.
Oh, geez.
I am very disappointed in myself. Are you ready
okay.
for this beautiful work of art?
Oh, is it Mabel from Gravity Falls?
Yeah. I couldn't, I was like, she has a pink oversized thing, she has a headband.
I feel like that was a really good Mabel.
Thank you. Here, I'll hold the
hold
hat
it out
for you.
me, and hopefully I know this person. I feel bad for you.
Damn.
This is not what I was going for, but we're gonna go with it.
I'm so scared.
I don't know how to draw.
It looks like a frog and a cow had a baby.
Well, you're close.
Is it Cow from Cow and Chicken?
It's my attempt, yes.
Mama had a
turn.
chicken. Mama had a cow. All right,
Okay,
let's see.
Last one. We're taking it. Someone's gonna take it home, or it'll be a tie. Okay. Are you nervous? Oh boy.
Oh, I'm so scared. You're gonna look a little high.
It's okay. Maybe this character just wanted to relax.
Oh, he needs to a little bit. Final touches. Okay, are you ready for this?
Oh yes. Is that Peter Pan?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good Peter Pan.
Peter Pan.
And with that, I've won.
Your first game.
Yeah. Yes.